Now, for more on the budget, we have been joined in the studio by Kwabre East MP Onyina Champon Akwesi Jemfi. Thank you very much. You're welcome to Channel One Newsroom.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Right, now let's look at the budget. This particular one outlines expanded, support for local food production and buffer stock and all. Now, as MP coming from Kwabre East, is this enough and sufficient, to support and address the challenges of farmers?
Well, let me first of all say the budget had highlighted very important strides in terms of inflation, very good, in terms of the stability of the cedi, in terms of economic growth, by mid-year we're doing 6.3%. But there are certain areas of the budget that, leaves much to be desired. You just mentioned the food side, agricultural side of it. The allocation to agric, even though it's substantial, but it's not enough to tackle the food security issues in the country. Now, I've seen that in the budget, it has tried to tackle various components of the sector. So it's tackling food, it's tackling the Kukon Ketinketi project, leading to maybe eggs and all that stuff. It's tackling the oil palm side of it. And so it's like, touching on bits, but the bits are not enough to consolidate.
What do you want to see, or what did you want to see?
So what I want to see is quite a targeted approach in terms of the various sectors of agric. So if you're looking at cash crops, what is a targeted approach towards cash crops? For example, if you look at cocoa, what are you doing to ensure that we get the volumes, that we get the production going up? Because the farmer's benefit is a function of two things. It's a function of the production, what he produces, how many bags or tons that he's able to generate from his farm, and also is a function of the price.
Right, so the investment and returns.
Yes, for a price per ton that he gets on his investment. And so if you want to target the cash crop of the farmer, you need to target these two things. So on the production side, I didn't see enough from the budget to say I'm supporting so much. You see targets, fertilizer, but fertilizer is general. Previous governments had targeted approaches like, the mass cocoa mass spraying. They had targeted approaches like doing the rehabilitation efforts. We had CORIP before. Then we had what the just immediate past did with the cutting the cocoa, doing the rehabilitation, getting them tubers of stuff to plant. And so that was quite a targeted approach. Then you get to the other side, like cashew. You haven't seen, we have the Tree Development Authority regulating the cashew industry, but then you don't have a targeted approach for cashew farmers, which you say you tackle the pests and the stuff, and also the smuggling that is, because cashew is grown along the borders, along around 7 regions. And so you need also, what do you do to boost cashew production? What do you do to boost exports? What do you do to prevent, what we call the briefcase buyers, where the Indians, the Vietnamese, they just come in, buy 2 or 3 containers and go away. By so doing, they are able to show up the prices because most of them control the chain. They are processors. So they come in, they want to control the chain by also being aggregators. And so they don't mind spending a lot more aggregating what they want. 500 tons, 1,000 tons, 3,000 tons, and then they go. So they show up the price, they kick out the local industry in the first few months of the cashew season, and then they go away. And so we need some of these targeted approaches. So then let me come back to what actually the government wanted to do in the oil palm. You see, when you go to oil palm, you have to look at the benefits that will generate and the contribution of that sector to the economy, what it will bring to the economy. And if that side is not generating enough, and you are going to focus so much on it, there are two things. It's either you don't want the growth now, but you are just preparing the farmers for the near future. And so you are saying that looking at the way the production will come, the way we want to control the chain, the way we want to look at processing and all that in oil palm, we are targeting an improved economy in the oil palm sector. But Ghana is not ready. There's already certain things that we can do. What is the consumption of oil palm?
Right.
Even though we can export, compared to cocoa, compared to cashew,
Right.
compared to other things.
So let's now look at the allocation to the road sector,
Yes.
because it's also an issue that agriculture would heavily rely on.
Yes.
Now, when you look at the allocation, especially looking at how road infrastructure has been a long-standing concern in your constituency, for example, you know, would you say that this allocation will cater for the concerns in your constituency?
So at the allocation to the roads, I think the road sector got about 4.4 billion or so, and it is not adequate.
Right.
Even though, I mean, if you look through the budget, the topmost sector was education, and then health, and then national security, and then it follows through like that. And I will say I will not complain so much on the road sector, because the sectors that are topping the charts are very important sectors.
Right.
Now, whether that allocation is enough, it is not enough. But this is what we have.
Right.
So you can't complain so much. My focus will be on the priority areas where we set our priorities.
Right.
And so if we have that allocation for the road sector, how is the government going to apply it? So if the government tells me that it's going to construct another Kumasi to Accra road, there's a different one with 8 interchanges and all that amenities, instead of focusing on the existing one and making it better. I have a challenge with that priority. Right. Okay. If the government says I'm doing big push, so in the 2025 budget, they allocated 13.8 billion for big push. And the government said we are allocating everything to the road sector in the big push. Everything to the road sector. Right. And so at that point, there was no commitment to achieving that, because even the 13.8 billion was not fully exhausted. It exhausted only 7.7 billion of that amount. And so it became, you ask the question, is the government fully committed on the roadside into achieving that big push agenda of the roadside? And so there will never be enough funds for roads. Right. But you come to my constituency.
You still have issues.
I still have issues with roads. Right. But it's not so much about the allocation. I haven't got a problem with it, because if you rank it, the ones that are leading the chart, I would say are topmost priorities. But we have to get our priorities right. Now, you know, in wrapping up, let me pick your thoughts on this. The majority in Parliament has described the budget as very transformational. The minority has raised concerns about its credibility and feasibility. What are the gaps that you have identified? Okay, we have just 60 seconds to go. 60 seconds. Well, this is I mean, you know the issues. Okay, one. So let me tackle revenue and so revenue and expenditure. You projected to get 162.6 billion in revenue in 2025 by end of third quarter. You got 154.9. There's a gap of 7.7, right? And then 2026, you want to increase your revenue target from 226 billion to 268 billion. That is extra 42 billion. You would think that this is a tall order, looking at the fact that you are not able to achieve your revenue target, and you are still increasing it. But then there are tax handles that were going to help you execute your revenue target, which is the COVID-19 levy and then the VAT. Now you want to reform that. It's going to create another gap of 5.7 billion. So the question is, even with all these tax handles, you couldn't achieve your revenue target. How much more you taking them out, increasing your revenue target by 42 billion, and still expecting to achieve your revenue target? It doesn't show credibility. Number two, then is the commitment towards your flagship programs. You have 24-hour economy. You promise Ghanaians is going to generate 1.7 million jobs. You allocate only 110 million towards that. When you allocate 292 million for sanitary parts and 207 million for stadiums, 200 million for stadiums, 207 million for rebasing the GDP. So where are your priorities?
Right.
Where is the 133 jobs that you said? So that one job, 3 shifts, 3 people
that is 24
is missing.
Yeah.
And if interestingly, if you look at all the budgetary allocations for 21 ministries,
right,
you will see that employment ministry is run, the employment, labor and employment ministry runs last.
Very well.
So if you have a target of achieving employment,
right,
that is your flagship thing that you said, the youth are going to get jobs, and then you do your budgetary allocation. And for 21 ministries, the employment ministry is the one that is last with 90 million Ghana cedis. Then what is the credibility?
Point
in the
well
budget?
noted. Thank you very much, Kwabri East MP Onyine Champon Kwesi Jemfi, for joining us this evening. Right now.